And we're starting the show this morning with a special in-depth look at the Black Lives Matter mural in the Greenwood district. Happening today, the city of Tulsa has removed the mural as part of a street maintenance project. And our own Travis Guillory is out in the field this morning on North Greenwood Avenue. Travis, you've been there this morning and you say that that mural now is gone.
Yeah. It's kind of surreal, honestly, to see. I mean, the amount of folks that were involved in putting it here, and I mean, everything that happened since Juneteenth, and the amount of folks that were against this mural to begin with. You know, you saw it right here if you were with us a couple of minutes ago, live on air, only on 2 Works for You, as the final bits of yellow lettering saying Black Lives Matter removed here from historic Greenwood Avenue, Black Wall Street. And you know, ever since June, this mural's had a pretty bumpy road up until this point.
We know that black lives should matter.
Originally painted to celebrate Juneteenth on the heels of George Floyd's death in May, the words Black Lives Matter, painted on Greenwood Avenue, Black Wall Street. To many, it's a phrase that stands for racial equality and a fight for social justice. But those bold yellow letters were quickly met with opposition when the chairman of the Tulsa County Republican Party asked the city council about a process for a Back the Blue mural on a Tulsa street.
I'm going to stand tall and protect their First Amendment right. They have a right to do that, but they need to do that in an appropriate manner.
Igniting a legal battle for the city of Tulsa.
The kinds of things that can be painted in the street are for safety and traffic management.
City Attorney David O'Melia saying he's not against the message, but since the mural was painted without a permit, leaving it there sets a precedent.
If you let one, you have to let them all.
Putting the burden on the city council, along with weeks of back and forth between city leaders and the community, as well as protests on the site of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre.
I don't understand why the mayor does not want to help us preserve this history.
If they want the mural there, the options to keep it there remain at their disposal.
Those options included the city vacating the street and no longer being responsible for its maintenance, or someone requesting a permit. And while heated discussions were happening, the mural vandalized. A streak of blue paint poured through the lettering. The next day, community members were back out on historic Greenwood touching it up. The city council ultimately voted in late August that the mural needed to be removed, using an already scheduled street overlay project, a more cost-effective method than sandblasting. And while we awaited an official date for that removal, community organizers painted other Black Lives Matter murals at several churches throughout Tulsa at the request of those churches in September, creating new reminders of the message. So while the original artwork, Black Lives Matter in the historic Greenwood district, will be erased, the meaning of that phrase will not. And even more murals, you know, popping up all over Tulsa, even this weekend. Take a look at this. First Lutheran and Tulsa Centenary United Methodist joining a growing list of churches, like I said, decorated with the phrase Black Lives Matter here in Tulsa. Those 2 murals going up over the weekend just ahead of today's removal. These murals join others that were painted last month at churches that included Fellowship Congregation, All Souls Unitarian, and St. Paul's United Methodist. I believe about 6 churches now with the phrase Black Lives Matter, either in their parking lot or on a building, on a wall, but 6 churches now joining that list. And you know, it's not just these public art installations that are causing folks to get upset. A lot of Black Lives Matter murals and artwork on private property is drawing some criticism recently. Actually, last Friday, an East Tulsa store owner found the side of her building, which displayed a Black Lives Matter mural, vandalized. Jackie owns Mad Dog's Liquor, and she dedicates the second building that she has to legal graffiti art. She had actually commissioned artists, asked artists to come and paint the words Black Lives Matter along with the names of black people who have died during encounters with police officers on the side of the building there. But last week, somebody went over there, covered up the words black, and replaced it with all, making it look like the mural said All Lives Matter instead of Black Lives Matter. And she contacted artists to fix that building. I'm told it's still not completely fixed this morning. But you know, with so much debate going on around these types of murals and these Black Lives Matter artwork and art installations, community activist and former Tulsa mayoral candidate Greg Robinson says that Tulsa leadership needs to step up and do a better job when it comes to stuff like this.
Entire city. You look at cities like Kansas City that have 6 Black Lives Matter murals and are actively looking to make that a statement of the city. The city of Tulsa could have fallen in line with a lot of other cities across the country and did the same thing. I think many in the black community are exhausted and they expected nothing less. I think if you talk to a lot of folks within the community, they'll tell you they're not surprised at all. And I think that's the problem.
And as Robinson said, Tulsa is far from the only city in America to be sporting a Black Lives Matter mural. The country, of course, erupted in protest after the death of George Floyd. Remember that video was released of the Minneapolis police officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck. A lot of activity spurring from that one event all throughout the summer, even into today. Look at where some of those other Black Lives Matter murals are in Washington, D.C. The mayor actually renamed a section of 16th Street in front of the White House Black Lives Matter Plaza back in June after a mural was painted just blocks away from the president's home. Up in New York, one mural was painted just outside of Trump Tower in Manhattan. And then across the country over in Seattle, city leaders actually worked with activists and worked with artists to make Black Lives Matter artwork even more permanent in the city of Seattle. Here in Tulsa, a lot of folks on both sides of the spectrum, a lot of folks that wanted it here, a lot of folks that didn't want it here. But we're getting a unique perspective this morning, actually. 2 News Tatiana Taylor got a chance to speak with a former Tulsa police chief about the message of Black Lives Matter when he was police chief versus where we are today. Tatiana.